There is a fairly common issue almost everyone goes through when they're serious about getting better at a competitive game. The problem is that as people get better and better, they want to start doing all the fancy crap that doesn't really help you at all. I'm literally doing it in TFT right now and I keep going 8th. It's not good. But in League, the things I have to watch low elo players do make me go crazy, like when they try to do the mid-air projectile level up trick. If you don't know, if you cast an ability that is a projectile and level it up before it hits a target, then the ability will cost the mana of the lower rank, but deal the damage of the rank you leveled it up to. This trick saves you like 5 or 10 mana at most, like 2 times a game. But anytime I've ever watched a low elo player try to attempt it, I can tell that they're so focused on trying to do it that they just end up missing. It just feels like when people load into League, they choose the hardest difficulty possible, where they have to min-max every little thing and sweat out of their minds to win most games. Meanwhile, when I'm playing League, I'm pretty reclined in my chair, watching yet another Netflix rom-com on my second monitor and beating them with barely any effort. I'm going to be covering something that it feels like every mid laner forgets to do, creating a simple matchup game plan. I'm going to be showing you that this simplest of strategies can get you any elo you want if you actually bother doing so.
Oh, and by the way, we just created a brand new custom course specifically for this guide at skillcap.com. It's there you can unlock an additional 7 site exclusive guides where our SkillCap Challenger expert Hector is able to go into even more detail to walk you through exactly how to create game plans for every single mid lane matchup. Find out more along with a discount code at the end of the guide. Now, back to the video.
The first step to making a game plan is pretty easy. You just need to think about what archetype of mid laner you're both playing. So for example, you could have LeBlanc, a burst mage, versus Ziggs, a poke mage. Don't overthink this step yet, just break down champions to the simplest archetype you can think of, because when you categorize them this way, it makes it really obvious how to make a game plan in lane. We'll come back to this matchup in a bit though. Let's think of a different one. Cassiopeia versus Annie. Cass wants extended trades and Annie wants short burst fights due to her long cooldowns. So let me ask you a question based off that. In this matchup, which lane state is favorable for Cassio and which one would be favorable for Annie? When the matchup is broken down to simple archetypes, isn't this really obvious? As Annie, you want the wave here. After one spell rotation, you are completely out of damage, so you want to be able to move back to your tower faster away from Cassio's range. And as Cass, you want to land multiple Qs and Es, so you want a lot of room to chase someone down, which means that the wave being closer to your tower should be very good for you. Once you have a basic game plan, the rest should be very easy. You just need to use one of the many strategies you learn in SkillCap to make it a reality. For example, you could just crash a wave into Annie's tower and create a bounce back freeze. Then you just need to thin the wave as it gets closer to your side of the lane, and that's it. That's the simplest way of making that happen, and no joke, you could probably beat a challenger level Annie if you executed that properly. The problem is, it's not always so easy. In certain matchups, how your champion wins fights won't seem as feasible. Let's go back to that previous matchup. As a poke mage, you could try to build a wave advantage and use your long range spells to land harass on LeBlanc from outside of her threat range, right? In reality, that's pretty hard to pull off consistently. Ziggs' spells are already annoying to land, and on top of that, LeBlanc can be quite evasive with her W to both dodge your abilities and move in and out to land quick bursts. And on top of that, she has some of the best ganks set up in the game, which you'd have to avoid the entire time. When you're in a matchup where it sounds really hard to beat your opponent by trading or trying to kill them, then you may want to think about alternate plans you could play for, such as roaming, wave clear, scaling, gank setup, etc. You ideally want to pick something that your champion excels at and something the enemy champion sucks at and play for that in some way. So in this matchup, Ziggs has both better scaling and good wave clear compared to LeBlanc, who needs to kill the snowball and has unplayable levels of wave clear. I don't care how much pros value this champion, playing LeBlanc is self-torture every time you have to interact with a minion wave. So with that in mind, Ziggs' plan could be to neutralize LeBlanc by keeping her under her tower the whole game with his superior pushing. Doesn't that sound so much easier than trying to ego it and outplay her through trading? I can feel what some of you may be thinking right now. I know that really basic stuff like this doesn't seem like it'll help you climb, especially when we try to teach it while we're smurfing. We're just so much better mechanically than everyone else, so we'll stomp them no matter what we do. And you know what? Sure, I can play with my brain off in low elo and beat everyone with mechanics. So in this guide, I'll instead recreate the circumstances you guys are in to show you elo mechanics don't matter. 1. I'll be playing Yasuo in high elo. Let me say this straight up, if I'm on this champion, I am intentionally griefing the game. I am a Malzahar and Sona player. There is going to be zero mechanical ability present in this video, especially because I'm still rusty as I'm coming off a massive break. 2. My opponent will be a challenger Viego main. Now before you get all Viego isn't a meta mid laner on me, I could have picked a standard matchup, but I'm choosing an unorthodox one on purpose. The point of this whole thing is that you can beat players with simple strategies. I know all of you don't play the game all day every day, so you don't know every champion inside and out. I still don't really know how this champion actually works. I have a vague idea of his kit, and that's all you really need. And this guy appears to be the next Chovy when he's on Viego, and he picked it into me, so it's not like I'm abusing some autofilled jungler. Okay, so I'm rusty, and a bad Yasuo versus a challenger Viego main who counterpicked me. Let's break down what I thought going into the matchup. First things first, I broke down our archetypes. Yasuo can do multiple things. He can go for short burst trades with his passive, or spam shove the wave with his decent wave clear and 0 mana requirements. I've got options, but ultimately, I'd put Yasuo under the category of wanting extended trades with Q and lethal tempo. Simple, right? As for Viego, like I said, I wasn't too certain of how that champion really works. Going into the game, I knew that he also likes extended trades. Something about his Q makes him hit you twice or something, and it's got like a 5-ish second cooldown from what I know playing against him. So we both have the same strengths. What do you do then? When we were looking at champions with two different archetypes, it was pretty easy to come up with a simple game plan, right? But when you have two champions with fairly similar goals, then things get slightly trickier. Let's take Ahri and LeBlanc for example. Both champs generally want short burst trades during the early game. In these types of matchups, if you don't see another clear win condition like the ones we mentioned previously, then you'll want to think about the small differences in how you each want to set up your plays. In this lane, Ahri is a bit more reliant on her skill shot than LeBlanc is. Ahri needs her charm to land both parts of her Q, whereas most of LeBlanc's damage comes from Q and W, which are pretty easy to land. Simply put, Ahri may want to focus on pushing the wave before trading in that lane so that she can more easily land her charm, whereas LeBlanc should be trying to stop her from doing that. Back to the matchup at hand, I knew that Viego's abilities have slightly longer cooldowns than mine. That probably meant I'll lose fights when he has all of his spells up, since they're likely more impactful than mine, but I have more opportunities to go in and out with shorter cooldowns. So my simple game plan was to look for fights whenever his spells were down. That's it. Alright, let's get into the game. At the start of the lane, I was playing safe because I assumed I was against Tristana in Champion Select. It took me a moment to think about what I wanted to do when I saw Viego here, since, yeah, I've never seen this matchup before and it caught me off guard. With my game plan made, as my minions begin to get low, I walk up to the side like this. This is something you guys learn from McBays all the time. If my goal is to play around enemy cooldowns, then I want to force Viego to use them, right? So he has a decision to make here. If he walks up to melee hit this minion to last hit, I'll obviously just hit him for free. Which means he's forced to Q the caster minion to get the CS, and you can tell I was ready for it because I immediately juked the second I see his animation. Perfect. I just used a very simple tactic to enable me to follow through with my strategy. Now I can walk up, get a bit of damage in, and back off before he can proc press the attack on me, or he gets his Q back up. Now how simple was that? Anyone here could have done that. But I know where the problem is for most of you guys. The issue is that when you guys queue up, go into a game, and you have the same game plan as I do, you're in the exact same situation, you walk up to pressure Viego, and then he queues you instead, and you're like, what the fuck? When your opponent does something unexpected, you just have to remember that most actions in this game have a trade-off. If he had queued me instead, you just have to think about what he's giving up to do so. In this case, he would have missed some last hits, right? Well, the main goal of laning and basically any matchup is to get a gold lead over your opponent. If he had queued me, I'd just zone him off 1 or 2 minions with the rest of my shield and then back off. At that point, it's fine if he gets lane control, because I'm already ahead. I'd probably let him crash my wave afterwards and then resume my game plan after that. Anyway, back to the lane, we're both level 2 now. Alright, I'm about to troll a bit. Every Yasuo does this for some reason. You notice your opponent is standing next to a minion, so you think, oh, I'm gonna EQ that minion, and then I have this one to slide out. I'm gonna look so smooth. Obviously, I just go in, tank a bunch of damage for no reason, and look like a moron. Thankfully, that doesn't compare to what Viego does next. His Q is on cooldown right now, and I have easy access to him with my tornado and these minions. So I get a quick trade on him and back off. That being said, this was a small Yasuo specific mistake. I should have extended the trade and fought him here with my shield. I eat out immediately because I wanted to save my shield for later, but it makes no sense because of the same reason we saw before. Like at the start of the lane, when I pressured Viego's CS, in any matchup you want to think about who is up next to last hit. By Eing out and damaging the minion, I'm up next, which means he gets a free timing to Q me and break my shield anyway. I do want to make a bigger point about these last 2 moments later, so we'll come back to them, but for now let's move on. Anyway, as the lane progresses, we get some last hits here and there, and then it's his turn to CS again. He walked up very confidently to this minion, so I wasn't really pressuring it. In my mind, I was like, okay, is Viego just turbo broken, because why else would he walk up so stupidly here? Again, my lack of matchup experience coming through. So as I play back and actively juke, he throws his Q and misses, and I'm like, oh, this guy's just really dumb. So I go in. I even misclicked the trade. I eat him instead of this minion right here, which means I dealt slightly less damage, but yeah, the lane is over. I just have to close out from here, but I just want to say it again. Does this high elo player not look like one of the gold players you go up against? I just want to emphasize that although I may be trolling some moments in this lane, it does feel like I have a certain goal, doesn't it? Whereas his gameplay just feels really random, and he doesn't respect when I'm strong and he's weak. That's why it looks so one-sided. Alright, so now we just have to close out the game, so where do we go from here? Well, he has no teleport, so he's stuck in lane. My first idea was to set up a dive with Graves, so I slow pushed just enough so I would crash on the 4th wave, giving my Graves enough time to get here. Sadly, he went bottom, so my dream that one day my jungler will path to my lane is out of the window. No problem, we'll just set up a freeze on the bounce back so that he won't be able to break it due to his low health. He should either be forced to take a horrible base timing, or he'll die if he stays. After the crash, I go set up some vision so that I can play aggressively on the bounce back while I wait the wave to clear out under his tower. So as I go into the river, I'm gonna be honest, I completely missed that Lilia walk right by me. Putting my blindness aside, thank you for watching this long because this was actually entirely a jungle guide in disguise. You see, this is my favorite part of the game. Let's watch what happens. Lily is clearly on her way to go get the other scuttle crab, so my Graves pass through mid to go contest it. As they fight in the river, Lilia gets chunked a fair bit, and she has to back off for a moment. Now remember that this is a high-ish elo game? Look at the state of mid lane. We also have a Smite top John on our team at the height of its power, while the enemy top is still in lane just pushing, trying to punish her. What do you think is about to happen? Will this Lilia contest the Scuttle Crab? Yes? Obviously? Why do I even play solo queue? Or the final option? Well, Scuttle has been nerfed and the experience it provides is no longer significant enough to throw a game over, especially since she already got the bot river one. Therefore, it would make complete sense to fight over the second one. Obviously that was a trick question. To jungle properly, you need to bait your teammate into dying, and then flame them for their negative KDA at the end of the game. Anyway, putting that stupid encounter aside, it really changed nothing about my game plan. I was just waiting for the wave to bounce back to me, and it's finally freezing towards my side of the lane. Now I'm just zoning Viego off the wave, and as my own cannon minion gets low, I move up to zone him from experience. Now Viego is about to do something both smart and dumb, and it's important to understand this for low elo. Mid laners will often run into their river brushes to pretend that they're kiting towards their jungler. Now this is effectively a 50-50. If you chase and the jungler is there, you'll die, and if they're not, you're gonna win. But in high elo, no one takes the flip because that's obviously not how you climb. Well, unless you know where the enemy jungler is, which I did because I just saw Lilia topside, and Viego knew I saw her, so this was a bit silly from him trying this. Needless to say, I just chase into the brush and take him out with an extended trade. After killing him, I just set up a freeze so I can base, and the lane is completely over. To wrap this guide up, I just want to say that this is a skill you need to practice. You're not always going to arrive at the best conclusion when making a game plan for every matchup. That being said, making a mediocre game plan with some logic behind it and playing towards it is much better than not having one at all. Maybe this Viego was just having a bad game, but he clearly didn't have some sort of consistent goal in mind that he was playing towards the entire lane phase. Do remember that having a plan also doesn't mean you can't learn to min-max stuff though. These two trades I went for are a clear example of that. I'm trying to learn Yasuo, and seeing what I can and can't do in every game is important to master the champion. But I just want to make it clear that in your own games, that the reason you're losing is never because of these types of decisions. It's always the really basic, obvious stuff that people just forget to play around. Whenever I lose a lane phase, that's literally the first thing I think about.
And if you really want to take your laning to the next level, then you need our brand new custom course specifically made for this guide at skillcap.com. It's there you can unlock an additional 7 site exclusive guides where our skill cap challenger expert Hector is able to go into even more detail to walk you through exactly how to create game plans for every single mid lane matchup. That's not all though. With our brand new course page, it's as simple as clicking mid lane, then selecting the matchups category, and just like that, you have 18 courses with over 100 unique guides breaking down how to beat every single mid lane matchup in League of Legends, so you can start stomping your lane and climb the ladder. The best part, all of this is risk-free with our rank improvement guarantee. So, what are you waiting for? Head to skillcap.com and get the rank you've always wanted. Discount link in the description below.
Anyway, check out the course if you want. I go over way more examples there, and see you next time.